Hello, everyone. It's lovely to be here in New York at StraftFest. I'm James Hurman. I'm going to talk today about the pornography of change. So my friend Mark Ritson, who is the famous marketing professor, talks about the pornography of change. He, of course, means our preoccupation in marketing with believing that every time a new technology or a new media or a new something comes along, right, the rules of marketing have completely changed. It's all completely different. We should completely change the way we operate, and we divert so much attention into that. Do you remember the metaverse? Yes, you do. Didn't we do well on that front? Bill Bernbach said a long time ago, it took millions of years for man's instincts to develop. It will take millions more for them to even vary. It is fashionable to talk about changing man. A communicator must be concerned with unchanging man. And Bernbach said this back in the 1950s before women had been invented, but he was absolutely right about it. So in a conference where you're going to hear a lot about change and what's changing, I want to be the little angel on your shoulder, whispering in your ear, remember what's not. It's just as important. So I want to talk about what is changing, because of course some things are changing, and I want to talk about what's not changing. And basically what's changing is a bunch of kind of tactical stuff about how we operate. But the fundamentals of marketing and how marketing and advertising work, those things are not changing, and that's what I'm going to talk you through today. I'm going to show you lots of charts, and I've only got 20 minutes, so I'm going to whiz through. I'm not going to explain all the charts, but I do give the 4 A's my blessing to give you this presentation afterwards if you would like it. One thing that's changing, so TV. When I started in advertising at the turn of the century, they told me TV is dead. And that year, TV was the highest performing media in terms of ROI. Then every single year from then until now, they've told us TV is dead. And whenever someone does a proper econometric study on the ROI of different media, they find that TV is by far the most effective. So that's what's happened up until now. Grace Kite in Cannes gave a really interesting presentation. She talked about how powerful TV is, its signaling power, the attention it gets. But she also talked about how much it's increased in cost over the last little while. In both the UK and here in the US, inflation by media channel, television is the worst culprit, which means that according to analytic partners, YouTube is actually outperforming TV. Now, this is only one study, and so we shouldn't pay too much credit to it, but it's the first time I've ever seen a proper econometric study say that something's better than television. So it might be that we're seeing that kind of shift. Does that mean we should stop using television? No, of course not. Television is still a really important part of the mix. It's just the first time that it's not at the top of that chart. What else is changing? Our attitudes towards wear out. Advertising wear out is a myth. It does not exist. Yes, people get bored of ads, but that doesn't mean they stop working. So analytic partners did a big study of 50,000 ads. They found 14 that had worn out. 14 out of 50,000. System 1 did a study where they looked at ads according to how long they'd been on air. Have they been on air for days or years? They found no difference in the testing scores. If ads wore out, you would see those testing scores go down over time. Advertising does not wear out. It wears in. But at the same time, it is true that the algorithms want us to constantly give them new creative. And that's not because TikTok and Facebook care about your advertising being effective. It's because they want to keep people on their apps. And the best way to do that is to constantly show them new things. So we do need to feed the algorithms with constantly new creative. But the answer is we need strong creative platforms, the same idea that can be executed lots and lots of different ways. So the idea wears in, and the executions can talk to what the algorithms need. What else is changing? Fragmentation and proliferation of media. Of course, there are more media opportunities than ever, and this will probably only continue. But what this does give us is lots more ways to make use of the synergies across lots of different media. So, as Kantar and the IPA have shown, the additional payback for the same budget across 5 channels versus putting it all into one channel is really significant from both a brand building perspective and from an ROI perspective. We've got more channels now, we can use more channels, we've got more to play with. As we stack channels on top of each other, the overall ROI gets stronger and stronger over time. What else is changing? We can respond to culture faster and better than ever before. This is my favorite tweet of all time. Did you all see this tweet? It's so good, isn't it? It's so good. That is the best tweet in the world ever. We can also kind of create new products and respond to culture in these new ways, like Ketchup and Seemingly Ranch. Really, really cool. So yes, we can interact with culture and respond to culture faster than ever before. And of course, there's AI. Fuck, is everyone bored of talking about AI? So, my take on AI is if you think about the marketing creative process, you've got the bit at the start, which is kind of doing your research and analysis and thinking and strategizing. You've got the bit in the middle, which is actually coming up with the idea, and you've got the bit at the end, which is producing and executing that idea. My bet is that AI will be really useful at that first bit, using tools like Springboards or other AI tools that help us do that research and analysis stuff really well and much faster and better and all that. And AI will be really useful at the other end in terms of executing work. And people, great, craftspeople will get very good at using these tools, and they'll be great. Where AI will continue to be shit is in the middle, right? This is a very human endeavor, the actual coming up with ideas and innovative, unique strategies. That's a very human thing. So I don't think it's going to play here very well at all, but it is going to be really helpful at either end of the process. So that's what's changing. But I want to talk about what's not changing. And I want to start with the reality that marketing is fundamentally about how markets work and how people make decisions, right? And those two things have not changed since the beginning of time, and they won't change for a very long time if they ever change at all. So let's talk about how markets work. I want you to put your hand up if you're in the process of buying a new mobile phone or intend to do so in the next week. 1, 2, 3. Okay, very good. I want to put up your hand if you think you'll buy a new mobile phone in the next 2 years. Okay, does anyone notice the difference between those two groups? Yes, one is much larger than the other. This is the reality of how markets work, right? In any market, there are two types of demand. There's what I call existing demand or current demand, the few people that put your hands up when I ask that question. And there's what I call future demand, which is people that aren't looking to buy from the category at the moment, but will definitely come into the category at some point in future. And once we understand this is how markets work, we can start to get our heads around the sorts of marketing we need to do to convert the current demand in the market and the different sort of marketing we need to do to talk to those people who will come into the category later, build our brand amongst them so they gravitate towards us when they do come into the category. The data plays this out. Here's data from your market here in the US. There are about 15% in the market for a mobile phone at the moment and 85% who are not. Let's look at sneakers. You all Americans buy sneakers a bit more frequently than you buy mobile phones. So there's a bit more current demand in the market, a bit less future demand, but still the same basic shape and pattern. If we look at, I skipped one, didn't I? New cars, very little current demand, a lot of future demand. Food delivery apps, 32% will order food on a delivery app this week, but 68% later than that. Hair shampoo and conditioner, same thing, 26% current demand, 74% future demand. And recreational cannabis, what a great category. It's still, even though it's new and unique and unusual, we still see the same pattern. 32% of people are getting high this week, and 68% of people are getting high in future. So that's how markets work, and they just work like that, and they have always worked like that, and they will always work like that. Also, how the human brain makes decisions. So the work of Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize-winning economist and father of behavioral economics. If you're in this room and you don't know who Daniel Kahneman is, go and Google him afterwards. His work shows that when we decision make as people, we make 95% of our decisions based on how we feel. This is intuitive decision making, it's based on emotions. And 5% of the time, we make decisions rationally, like we kind of form lists in our heads of kind of the pros and cons of things and decide between them. We do hardly any of our decision making in that kind of rational way, and most of it in a very emotional, very intuitive way. And this is why when we look at emotional campaigns and rational campaigns, we see that emotional campaigns are better, more effective at driving business effects than rational campaigns. Now, this side of the chart is from the IPA, from the long and short of it. Some of you are no doubt familiar with that. But when the IPA put out the long and short of it now 13 years ago, people ask the questions, well, this is all UK data. Is it just how advertising works in the UK? Does it work this way in other countries? And now they also go, well, it was back in 2012. It was before the kind of rise of the internet and social and all the rest of it, and marketing must have changed in the interim. So I built a similar database in New Zealand, and we track via our FEs programs the same things that the IPA track. So we can look at the recent data from 2022 to 2024 in a completely different market to the UK, and we see exactly the same patterns. If it's brand building or if it's long-term commercial effects, emotional campaigns do better. Why do they do better? Because they're talking to that side of our brain that actually makes most of our decisions, including purchase decisions. Emotional campaigns are also more profitable. They were back in the days of the long and short of it. They are now. Emotional campaigns are more profitable because when we feel emotionally close to a brand, we are more likely to buy it when it's not on discount, or when it puts its prices up, or when it's a little bit more expensive than the other similar brands. Creativity outperforms uncreativity. So creatively award-winning campaigns back in the days of the IPA databank, better on sales growth, market share, pricing power, penetration growth. Same in the modern era in a completely different market. Creatively awarded campaigns outperform non-awarded campaigns on sales growth, market share growth, profit growth, and ROI. Be creative, please. But you know what? The one thing where creative campaigns don't outperform uncreative campaigns is producing short-term sales, converting the current demand that's in the market. When people are in the market, they actually want kind of rational information. They don't need to, they can just be served up the facts because it's helping them make a decision that they're actively invested in making right now. Whereas for people who aren't in the market yet, they don't care about any of your facts. All they want is to be entertained by you and for you to leave some kind of emotional impression on them. That's why rational campaigns also produce stronger short-term sales. Rational campaigns are worse on every other metric, but they do produce stronger immediate short-term sales. The other thing that's unchanging, attention spans. Who's heard that our attention spans are getting shorter? Oh, lots of you, yeah. Very good, Christopher. Attention spans are not getting shorter. That is complete bullshit. Here is a data showing that adults' attention spans are actually getting slightly longer, and younger people's attention spans are just the same as they've been for a very long time. Our attention spans are not getting shorter at all. What is getting shorter is our patience with crap content, right? There's so much content around that if we put shit content out into the world, yes, people will quickly move away from it and onto something better. It's nothing to do with their attention span. It's to do with the availability, the massive availability of better content than the content that you're putting out. Also, what's unchanging is that money needs to be spent on advertising. We live in this kind of constant downward spiral of budgets being compressed, and how do we be more efficient and spend less, as if that's some kind of good thing to be doing. Scott Galloway, your marketing professor here in New York, has told the world that in his words, what are the companies that have added over $100 billion in enterprise value over the last 10 years have in common? They don't advertise. That's a marketing professor saying something that is completely untrue about marketing and advertising. So the annual advertising spend of these companies who have added more than $100 billion in enterprise value over the last 10 years is massive. They're among the biggest advertising spenders in the world. This group makes up something like 5% of all global ad spend. Just these companies. They're spending orders of magnitude more on advertising than most companies. It is a myth that modern technology companies don't spend money on advertising. They do. They're among the biggest in the world. How do they stay big? They advertise and they invest hard to win. Whoop. What else is unchanging? Who's heard of the 60-40 rule? Okay, some people have. It's basically, back in the long and short of it again, Les Binet and Peter Field found that if you were spending more than 50% of your budget on performance marketing rather than brand building, you would see poorer results than if you spent 60% on brand and 40% on performance. That's the optimal split. That was back in 2012. And that was kind of a revelation at the time, but it actually wasn't the first time that someone had done this. Right here in New York, Peter Kim, back in the 90s, found the same thing. Back then, it wasn't called brand and performance. It was called advertising and promotion. And if you spent less than 50% on promotion, you made a higher ROI than if you spent 76% of your budget on promotion. So they found that back then. Analytic partners, again, I think based here in New York, have shown the same thing. What this chart shows is basically that unless you spend about half and half performance and brand, you will see a lower overall ROI. Getting that balance right has always been important and will always be important. We absolutely have not moved into a time where overspending on performance marketing yields better results. It doesn't. The other thing that's unchanging, big screens and long spots still work, right? So this is from our database in New Zealand, but you'd find it's true here. When you show something on a large screen versus a small screen, the number of very large brand effects and long-term commercial effects is much higher. Also, when you show these short little tiny spots, they're not as effective as longer spots, right? And so we're still, if we want to create great content, again, like there's no attention deficit. A young person will watch an entire movie or an entire Netflix series. We've got to make the longer ads good, but when we make them a bit longer and show them on bigger screens, they do better. Right, so knowing all of that, I want to talk about how you can fuck up. So these are the headlines about Uni. Anyone here from Unilever? Anyone here who works with Unilever? Oh, just one. Just one. All right, I'm only going to offend one person. So Unilever CEO Fernando Fernandez says they're going to shift all of their, or 50%, of their ad spend to social, put an influencer in every area code, and really kind of lean in to social and influencers as their smaller competitors who are taking some of their market share are doing. Now, these headlines remind me of a few years ago when there were pretty positive headlines about Nike doubling down on its digital strategy, shutting down wholesale accounts, shifting to direct-to-consumer, because they wanted to market a bit more like On and Hoka, who were doing, a lot more digital kind of influencer-led stuff. And Nike thought, we need to be more like them, and we need to market more like them. And so they shifted. And they shifted to, a big social influencer strategy. They actually did pretty good influencer marketing. They executed really well. They were named the top brand for influencer marketing in the US last year in 2024. Also, what happened in 2024, their digital sales dropped 20%, their profit dropped 20%, their market share dropped 2%, their share price dropped 29%, and the CEO was fired, right? That's what happens. It's not that they didn't execute social and influencer well, it's that they did too much of it. Right? They ignored that reality that you can't do too much of that stuff. You've got to still do plenty of the kind of old-fashioned brand building, using broadcast media, doing things that way if you want to succeed. And this is true. Don't ever forget this. If you market like a small brand, you will become a smaller brand. Right? And it's really important that we don't, whatever we do, fall into the trap of looking at small competitors who are taking a little bit of market share and decide we should market like them because they're growing faster than us. They're growing faster because they're tiny, and they won't continue to grow that fast, and you will shrink towards their size if you copy their tactics and market like a smaller brand. So, what is changing? Perhaps we're entering an age where TV is no longer the absolute kind of number one highest ROI media. We do have creative hungry algorithms. We need to feed those algorithms, but we need to be smart about it, not different stuff each time. One clear brand platform. Media is growing and growing and growing and growing. We can take advantage of that by spreading out across channels with the same creative. Speed to culture. Let's take advantage of that. It's awesome. AI, used at the beginning and the end, fantastic. Try and use it in the middle, and I predict that will be a wasteful enterprise. So those are the tactics, really. They're tactics that we can bend to and take advantage of. But we shouldn't forget the fundamentals. In any market, the group of people who aren't yet in the market but will come into it later is much bigger than the group that are currently in the market. We need to talk to that much bigger group because they represent all of our future cash flows. Decisions are made emotionally. That is not going to change. People do not make decisions rationally most of the time. Spend and split, it's important to invest. Spend is important. It's not going after efficiency. Effectiveness is 10% efficiency and 90% scale. It's not about kind of how little money can we spend. It's about how much money can we invest to grow much bigger than everyone else. Big screens and long ads, they've always worked, they always will. Attention spans are not declining. And these are all fundamental things that we best not forget if we are to, successfully adapt without dying. And that's it from me. Thank you very much. Am I still clicking? I've got time for Q&A, don't I?
You have time for Q&A.
All right. Who's got a question?
I've got a first one for you.
Go.
Our clients are smart people.
Some of them.
Many of them are very good readers, and they have access to some of these same things. Why? Two-part question. Why is it so hard to convince clients of the righteousness of what you're saying? And how would you advise agencies and strategists to tackle that problem?
Yeah, great. Great question. Okay, so yes, there is a deficit in knowledge of many of the fundamentals about how marketing and advertising work. Most of us either weren't trained very well, or were trained on stuff that's actually factually incorrect. So a lot of the work that's been done over the last 20 years by institutions like the IPA, the Ehrenberg Bass Institute, all sorts of other researchers and organizations around the world, has given us a very high definition, high fidelity view of how advertising really does work, right? And so we can now learn about that. But there's so much noise, right? So much noise. And so what we need to be doing with the client community is educating them, right? Back when I led planning at Colenso BBDO in New Zealand, one of my jobs, I made it my job to educate the clients, to take them this effectiveness information and share it with them, not just once, but keep doing it, right? And that's how we got them on the same page as us. So when they came into the agency and they were asking for the right kind of work, and that's how we got to be really prolific in making lots of the right kind of work. And so I think, number one, educate yourselves as strategy folk on all of these principles. You can do my course, The Master of Advertising Effectiveness, if you'd like to. I'll teach them all to you, and then take them to your clients or bring your clients on the program. Whatever you do, make sure that you're part of the noise that they're hearing, because they're hearing so much of it. Work to be the authority, work to back up what you're advising based on the data and the evidence that is there.
Great. So another question. You referred to brand versus performance, or brand and performance.
Yeah.
What is brand advertising? What is it? How do you define it?
Yeah, so I would loosely define, I'm going to start with performance. So performance marketing is marketing that's intended to drive an immediate or near immediate result, conversion, sale, whatever it might be. It tends to be a little bit more rational, right? It tends to be more targeted at a small group of people who are more likely to be in the market for the product. And what else am I forgetting? And it tends not to be very creative, right? Lots of performance marketing, I would call it performance with personality. Sometimes it's performance and it's dressed up and it's served in a boring way, but it's not a proper big creative idea. Brand is when we're doing something which is intended to talk to that much larger group of people who aren't yet in the market and make them aware of and emotionally positive towards our brand, so that when they come into the market, they gravitate towards us and they're more likely to buy from us and act on the performance marketing that we do. I don't have time to show you it today, but there's plenty of data that proves that this is how it works. And brand advertising tends to be emotional, creative, targeted at very broadly, targeted for reach, not micro-targeted, because you're wanting to reach that massive group of people who are going to come into the market later. That's my definition of those two things. One is intended to convert the current demand in the market. One is intended to create future demand and make our future performance performance better.
Thanks. With increased availability of rational info for comparison due to AI, does this influence the need or the lack of need for performance marketing? I'm reading this and I want to make sure I understand it.
Yeah. Does it negate the need for performance marketing? No.
Right.
The job that performance marketing fulfills is a really important one, right? So do not take away that I said that performance marketing is unimportant. It's really important, just in balance. Because what it does is when people come into a category, it helps nudge them towards a decision, right? Now, yes, people might go on to ChatGPT and ask, for a side-by-side comparison of things, but, not always. Like, how often have you all truly done that? Like, you might have done it once or twice. How many products have you bought in the last, since AI existed, right? You've probably bought dozens, if not hundreds. Have you gone to ChatGPT for all of those things? No, you have not, right? So we're still going to need performance marketing to some extent. It still fulfills a really important purpose, but keep it in its box.
And this one comes from Anonymous.
Hi, Anonymous.
If you wanted to learn more about the fundamentals that you're talking about, should you go to Christopher Owen's workshop on full stack strategy?
Yes, that's exactly what I'd recommend. That is exactly the right thing to do. Christopher Owen's the man in orange down here. Follow that man.
Thank you, James.
You're welcome. Thank you.